Hi everybody, Joey here again, and welcome back to the final part of my planted nano aquarium build. In last week's video, I showed you how I built everything for it, and in today's video, we're going to set it up, plant it, and get everything going, and show you the progression of how this tank has gone. The first thing we're going to address is actually the substrate, and substrate is arguably one of the most important parts of a planted aquarium, next to CO2 and lighting. Now, if you remember my cube aquarium build, I used Amazonas aqua soil, and I actually had quite a bit of that left over, so I just used some of that again. Once adding about 1 to 2 inches of this substrate into the aquarium, I wet it down with a water bottle. This makes planting it a little easier, especially when you need to fill it up, in case some of the substrate floats from not being saturated yet. Now, the point of this mini-series is to give you a demonstration of what we could do, potentially, if we do all do-it-yourself equipment. Now, if you remember when we did the cube aquarium, we bought a lot of the equipment and then slowly started to replace it. However, it was difficult for me to show you some of the progression shots of comparing do-it-yourself equipment to the bought equipment. So what I really wanted to do is essentially duplicate this aquarium using the same substrate and the same plants, so you can get a really good idea of the results. So once again, I went with some tissue culture dwarf hairgrass. I rinsed it all out, cut it up into really small portions so I can spread it out and get that carpet faster. Took some tweezers and pushed it into the substrate as evenly throughout the aquarium as I could. Now, when it comes to planting this dwarf hairgrass, I do find that pushing half of the plant down into the substrate works best. It makes sure that it stays in place and it roots really quickly. Now, since I cut these portions up so small, I was able to spread it out a lot more, meaning that I'm going to be off to a really good start with getting this carpet established pretty quickly. Before filling the aquarium up though, I turned the aquarium around, wet it down and cleaned it, and applied that clear window frost we've added in the past. Again, I picked this up on Amazon for very little money, and I'm able to use it on several aquariums. This allows us to add a bit of a background to the aquarium while not taking away from the aquascape. It also adds a bit of depth and hides the electrical cords behind the aquarium. Once I got all the dwarf hairgrass planted in, I filled the aquarium up and started all of the equipment. Now, since the CO2 is tapped into my cube aquarium CO2, I made sure that the lighting was also on the same cycle. Basically, I just plugged it into the same timer. So immediately, this aquarium is basically automated. 1 week later, the plants are starting to open up and develop their own roots. And since the hairgrass is developing the roots and it seems to be doing well, I decided I would go ahead and add in more plants. Now, since we're mimicking this cube aquarium, I went ahead and clipped out some of the Rotala rotundifolia from that aquarium and simply transplanted it to the new aquarium. I just took a few clippings and pushed it into the substrate, with really no goal other than to show you what it would look like once this plant grows in and it can cover up the filter like I mentioned in last week's video. 4 days later, and we already have some noticeable results. The hairgrass is also spreading through runners and opening up a lot more. Another 4 days after that, and the Rotala has grown to the top of the aquarium. It's at this point that I can start to propagate it and start clipping it, replanting it, and making it an even more dense bush. 3 weeks later, everything's grown in and looking great. Now, mind you, there's no dosing going on here. The lights are on for about 10 hours a day. We have some light CO2 in the aquarium, and a good substrate, but that's really it. Now, it's at this point that I would typically add in some animals, whether it be some shrimp or some fish, but really I just wanted to give you a demonstration of what these lights and really a do-it-yourself system is capable of in a really short period of time. And what we're seeing here is the progression of less than 6 weeks. Imagine another 6 weeks from now. So I hope this little mini-series on this nano aquarium potentially inspired you as to how simple a small planted aquarium really can be. But I gotta say, there's some contributing factors to the success here. 1, it's a good substrate. 2, I have CO2 being added to this aquarium, and that's a big one. Finally, 3, there's some decent lights on this tank. Everything else isn't nearly as important as those 3. The rest really is finding balance on dosing and where you really want to be. Whether you have too much light or not enough light, too much nutrients, not enough nutrients, and so forth. Planted aquariums are really all about finding that balance. And I guess I'll end today's video on that note. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. I'd also like to thank you for watching, and if you join me next Sunday, I'll have a new do-it-yourself project for you.